Good evening, everybody. Monday morning quarterback, episode 127. Doing it here from my house again. It's become more and more difficult to do these at 9 o'clock with our growing family and having three little ones at home. So tonight's going to be the last night we do a 9 o'clock one. When we originally started this, it was a Monday morning thing, hence Monday morning quarterback. So I'm not exactly sure what time we're going to transition this back to, but I'm open to suggestions. It just makes a lot more sense for me with everything I got going on to do it some point during the day, and then just from a practicality standpoint, we have people that can help with video. We have the ability to have more guests during the day, do more off-site stuff, and so that's the reason we're going to definitely go back to doing the show at some point on Mondays, because I don't want to do away with it. I really enjoy sharing tech tips and knowledge with you guys and answering your questions. We kind of originally moved it to a nighttime segment to try to get more live viewers, catch people when they were home and off work. But it should, like I say, we've been doing it this way for 3 years now. And with everything changing for me at home and work being so busy, it's just gotten more and more difficult to do it live at 9 o'clock at night. So we're going to go back to the daytime. If you can't watch live, I apologize. Definitely continue tuning in and comment your question. So if one of the topics we're covering, you had a question, comment it, and then I'll start the next week by answering any questions that we missed from the week before. And so I actually have a few questions that have came in via email or phone calls to the shop, and I wanted to start tonight with those because they're common questions that I get. I talk to 20, 25 different racers a day, every day, whether it's taking an order or tech support or tech questions, and I get some of the same questions over and over. So I definitely wanted to chat about those first. And then any questions you have, fire away with those, and that'll be how we handle tonight's program. Again, if you have a time you would like on Mondays during the day, please comment that so we can get some feedback on that. But the first thing I want to cover tonight is shock dyno numbers. I shared last week when I wasn't able to go live one of the more popular videos, Monday morning quarterback videos from our YouTube channel, and that was about dyno sheets and how to read your dyno sheets. We get questions every day where a guy has these specific numbers that he wants, and that's awesome, right? It's great that more and more folks are calling and saying, I want a shock that's 80 pounds of compression and 90 pounds of rebound, and not just saying, hey, I want a 5-valve shock. It's good that they at least have that much knowledge, because 10 years ago when we started this, unless we were talking to an outlaw crew chief or some USAC crew chiefs, nobody knew those numbers. So that's great that we're getting more of that, but it's really important to understand how that number was derived, because we get into some confusion with folks where their buddy or a crew chief or they heard through the grapevine that so-and-so's running a left rear shock that's got 200 pounds of 1-inch rebound. Okay, so that's good information, but we don't quite know all of it. Was the shock dynoed at 6 inches per second, or was it dynoed at 10, or a different velocity? So that's very important. And then 2, is that the rebound average number we're talking about, or is that the rebound close number? So it's really important to know those things when you're trying to learn your shock numbers. Is what speed was it dynoed at, and what number am I talking about? Am I talking about a rebound and compression average number, or rebound closed compression open number? And because all of that information is given out if you're working with a shock manufacturer or tuner who uses CTW or Rohrig equipment. The Maxwell dynos, they just give you the average unless you specify that you want to see everything else. So if you're using a Maxwell dyno, or your builder or tuner has a Maxwell dyno, you're more than likely looking at the average numbers, and that's fine as long as we know that and we know what speed it was dynoed at. So that's one question that I've got a lot here as the season's getting ready to get going. The second one is how much shock travel should I be getting on the left front of a wing sprint car? We get all the time like, hey, I think I need a shorter shock because I'm bottoming the left front out. Totally okay, as long as it's not slamming down so hard that one, you're going to upset the race car, or two, damage the shock. Most wing sprint cars are going to give however much travel you give it. So if you put a shorter shock on and you went from 3 inches of down travel to 4, it's probably still going to come close to bottoming out or bottom out. So we actually use that as a tuning tool. And typically a quarter mile, we're going to start 3 to 3 1/4, and then bigger tracks 2 3/4 to 3 inches. And that's how much stroke you have available at ride height, driver in the car, as it would roll on the racetrack. So if you have a wing sprint car and you're bottoming out the left front, not of a huge concern, but definitely make sure you're aware of how much travel you have, and note that in your notes, because that's something that is a very good tuning tool. As the track slows down, we want to reduce the travel because we don't want to get the left front, so the camera is, get the left front down so far that the right rear then gets up out of the racetrack, okay? So that is a tuning thing that we'll do. The last one I had in my notes to cover was how much gas pressure should we run, and that's kind of a generic question. And then, do I have to use nitrogen? So while we definitely recommend nitrogen because it's a dry gas, we're not going to introduce moisture inside the gas chamber. If you are really in a pinch, you can use compressed air, but it's not recommended because as the shock gets hot, it's going to increase more than nitrogen. So nitrogen is definitely the preferred on that. The other part of that is how much gas pressure do I have to run? Well, that really depends on the build of your shock, right? So how much compression it has, how stiff the base valve stack is. There's going to be a minimum to keep the shock from cavitating, and that's going to vary based on who built your shock, how it was built, what the intended use is. So if it's something that we built, we can give you the bare minimum you can run. On your tuning guide, it'll give you a range of gas pressures we would run depending on track conditions. But if you just call and say, hey, I have an AFCO shock, how much gas pressure I need to run, we can give you a pretty good idea, but we're always going to err towards the little bit higher side, because without us having it on the dyno and actually testing at what point the shock cavitates, it's a little hard to know since we didn't build it. So there's a couple questions. Kevin, great question. If you have too much travel on the left front, how do you tune it or minimize it? We typically do it with just the clip-in packers. You can do it with a bump stop. If you have to get rid of a bunch of gaps, say you have a 1/2 inch too much, you could put one puck in there and minimize that. But typically we do it with the packers. Ideally, we're going to start the night with nothing, and then add a 1/4 inch of packer as the track slows down. So the axles that have multi pickups are very, very handy. Or if you get to a situation where you have an adjustable shock mount up top, some chassis manufacturers are building that slider. But really, if you just have a front axle that has a few pickups, that typically gives you everything you need right there. Brandon, is there a thought about us manufacturing our own springs for coil cars? At this point, no. we really feel like there's some great spring manufacturers out there. We've done business with Hypercoil for going on 12 years now. Love their product, love the quality of it. As we've had some supply issues with those folks over the last 6 months, we started selling iBox springs as well. When we did our research, they were on par with Hypercoil's quality, and so to build a really high-end, high-quality spring like that, you pretty much got to be all in, or have somebody private label it for you. And if we were going to go that route, we would probably reach out to one of those two to see if they would private label for us. But at this point, we're pretty much focused on the shock stuff and just providing a good quality spring that complements our shock. We're not really interested in having an inferior spring that has our name on it, and to have a spring that would match the quality of IVOC or Hypercoil, we would probably have to have one of those companies private label for us, or some European spring manufacturer that did really high-end springs. Anybody else have any questions this evening? Have any of you 50 or 60 or so that are watching caught our People Behind the Products episodes, and do you like those? So that's one thing we were trying to do, is give folks a little bit of insight to what we do every day, and the players at our shop. And yeah, if you like those videos, let us know and we'll get you more. If you would rather see more tech videos, let us know. Jeff, is the XT left rear shock ready? So we've made some prototype pieces, and we've had some guys running it with some success. I'd have to check with the machine shop. The production parts are ordered. We made a small run of them, and we don't have any left. But I would say probably 2 weeks we'll have the production needles for those XT left rears, and yeah, then we can build those. So Don, you like the videos? Awesome, thanks. Rick likes them as well. Well, we'll keep those coming. We're gonna plan to drop a new episode of those every Wednesday. So we're filming each week and then producing one video a week, and then some short little clips in between. And again, stay posted to our social media channels, as this week I'm going to hone in on what the best time would be, and then our Monday morning quarterbacks will move to that time. For the foreseeable future, again, it'll be nice to have the assistance of a video guy and be able to do it at the shop, and especially at our new shop where we're going to have a designated space and not have to do it in my kitchen, because I just got my kids to bed 5 minutes ago. Well, John, I don't know that it increases the bar rate 25 pounds. Really, you're widening or narrowing your spring base. The only way I can see it increasing the bar rate that much is if the arm got shorter when you did that. Most of the non-wing guys like to run the bowed or billet machined one for clearance when they're counter steering back. But I honestly haven't done the math to see how much different the spring base is changing with a straight arm to an angle broached arm. But I would be surprised if it's 25 pounds different, truthfully. That's a pretty big change. That would be like probably 3/8 of an inch or so difference in arm length. So I'll look into that and get back to you. I apologize, I don't know that off the top of my head. All right, well, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Sorry we weren't more formal this evening, but again, we will get that fixed up, as we're going to be doing them from the shop moving forward on Mondays. And one more question. Nick Stenzel, stops and bar bushing, what's the best material and why? I've always liked the bronze bushings. They seem to hold up a little bit better. There's not as much deflection in them as a plastic one. The downside is they're harder to ream than a plastic bushing. But if I was building a car, I would build it with the bronze bushings. And then as far as stops, if you can afford them, titanium stops are super nice and will last forever. Otherwise, a nice machined steel stop. On a micro, you can probably get away with aluminum stops, but on a sprint car, I wouldn't recommend aluminum stops. I would have a nice machined steel stop or titanium if you can afford it. So, alrighty. Well, thank you guys. I hope you have a fantastic week. And again, a new episode of People Behind the Products will drop on Wednesday. Take care.